So, the Poco F6 is priced at 30,000, whereas the Poco X6 Pro is priced at 25,000. See, I'm not talking about the net effective pricing, but the actual price of these phones. Now, my question is, how much more do you get for the 5,000 rupees that you pay extra for the Poco F6? Well, let's do the math. Hi, I'm Arshad. You're watching Track and Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Now, if I tell you the Poco F6 is faster, more powerful than the Poco X6 Pro, I'm sure that this is not going to be your reaction.
What?
Because in Antutu and Geekbench, the F6 scores more than the X6 Pro. We also tested Genshin Impact, where we played the game for 30 minutes at highest graphics at 60 frames per second. And of course, we got higher average FPS on the F6 compared to the X6 Pro. That's not it. The Snapdragon 8s Gen 3 gives you support for ray tracing, which is not available on the Dimensity 8300 Ultra. Moreover, the Snapdragon chip inside the F6 doesn't throttle as much as the Dimensity one inside the X6 Pro. And finally, both of these phones can keep the temperatures in check. They don't get unbearably hot, so that's good. Now, with that established, let me do some math for you. Now, if you take a look at the Antutu scores, F6 scores 8% higher than the X6 Pro, but it's 16% more expensive than the X6 Pro. The price to performance ratio on the X6 Pro is actually fantastic, and you also do get LPDDR5X RAM type and UFS 4.0 storage, which is the same on the F6. But you know what? That's just the dynamics of the market. You are hit by a law of diminishing returns after you hit a certain price point. Earlier, that price point would be about 40,000 rupees. Now, it's been brought down to 25,000 rupees. All thanks to Poco. It's good for us though. And we did the battery math too. The X6 Pro actually lasted longer than the F6 to our surprise. So I got about 7 hours of screen on time with the X6 Pro, where I got only about 5 hours with the F6. But the F6 does charge faster at 90 watts and it takes about 35 minutes to charge from 0 to 100%. The X6 Pro takes slightly longer. It takes about 45 minutes for a full charge using the 67 watt charger inside the box. But I will generally take longer, better battery life than faster charging speeds. What about you? Let me know in the comments below. As for the network capabilities, both are fantastic for mobile data because you get support for umpteen 5G bands, and even the call quality is fantastic too. So nothing really to tell the two apart there. By the way, before I want to talk about the cameras, I did some math on our channel as well. Only 5 to 10% of the people watching our videos are actually subscribing to the channel, and that's too low a number, so hit that subscribe button. It's free. Now, I'm sure that you're thinking that the Poco F6 for 5,000 rupees more should give you better cameras than the X6 Pro. Well, let the comparison samples do the talking. See, the Poco F6 50MP primary camera doesn't artificially oversharpen the image as much as the Poco X6 Pro does. So the details are more natural, the textures are better. But the F6 colors are boosted to an extreme level to make it look attractive. At the same time, the X6 Pro keeps things slightly more neutral. In fact, that comes through in the skin tones as well. The X6 Pro skin tones are warm, but they're closer to neutral compared to the pink mess on the F6. Plus, look at the color of the shirt here. The X6 Pro gets it right. Even the bokeh drop off and the edge separation in portrait mode is actually better on the X6 Pro compared to the F6. In HDR shots, what I noticed is that the F6 actually has better noise correction in the shadows, but that also wipes out a lot of the details. And while the highlight correction could have been better on both, but when you compare the two, the X6 Pro's highlight correction is actually better than the F6. In low light samples, you can see that the X6 Pro actually has a brighter exposure. But when you do a 100% crop, you can notice that the F6 actually captures more details. The same is also true for the ultra-wide low light shots that we capture. In fact, talking about ultra-wide, both the 8MP ultra-wides on these phones are equally sharp or not, depending on if you think it's sharp enough for you. But the colors captured by the ultra-wide are not at all consistent with the primary camera colors on the F6. The X6 Pro's ultra-wide colors are also not consistent with the primary, but at least it tries to get close to it. Now, what about selfies? Well, the X6 Pro actually does it better. I like the skin tones better, and even the color of the shirt right here is absolutely spot on. Even in low-light selfies, I like the skin tones and the details that you can get from the X6 Pro compared to the F6. Where the Poco F6 actually beats the X6 Pro is in video performance, because with the primary camera, you can shoot 4K 60 FPS videos with the F6, where you can only do 4K 30 FPS using the X6 Pro. Plus, the video bitrate is higher, the audio bitrate is higher. It's just better quality overall. Now, using the front camera though, you can shoot 1080p 60 FPS videos using both the phones. But here as well, you can see that the F6 actually has a slight bit of advantage with the higher bitrate audio recording. You know what my problem is with both these phones is that Poco's camera algorithm is wildly inconsistent. There's no one distinctive Poco look that you can identify when you see pictures captured from the phone. Because you can tell if a picture was captured by a Vivo, Motorola, Samsung, if you've been taking a look at their style or their distinctive style. Now, in the case of these two phones, the algorithm used with the X6 Pro tries to keep things more natural, where on the F6, it's oversaturated. Poco really needs to put in more effort and energies into camera now for the next phone. Now, talking about the design of both these phones, both are made entirely of plastic and they look pretty basic if you ask me. But this I feel is a more distinctive, more recognizable Poco design because nobody else makes it like this. This one's slightly more Redmi if you ask me. Now, even when you take a look at the dimensions and the thickness, they're nearly identical. Now, the F6 is slightly lighter on paper, but in real life, I can't tell the difference. Now, what's separating the two is the IP rating. You get IP64 on the F6, whereas you get IP54 on the X6 Pro, which means that the F6 will have better dust resistance than the X6 Pro. But water resistance is still protection from splashes of water on both these phones because the number 4 is the same. So if you look at the design, the build, everything, it's a bit of a parts bin approach that Redmi, Poco use across their product lineups because these two phones are eerily similar when it comes to the design and the build quality. Now, the display on both these phones are quite similar, especially in terms of the specs, except for one spec. Now, both the phones have the same 6.67-inch AMOLED display with 120Hz refresh rate. You also do get support for Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus support. In fact, only Xiaomi and Poco phones in the 20 to 30,000 price category give you support for Dolby Vision on Netflix as well. Even the peak brightness, when the automatic brightness kicks in, especially when you take the displays outdoors, is the same in terms of metric, 1200 nits. And when we actually check them side by side, we couldn't tell any difference. The only metric that's slightly better on paper is that the F6 has 2400 nits of peak brightness while watching HDR content. This is 1800 nits. But when we check them side by side, we genuinely couldn't tell the difference, and that won't really matter that much to most people as well. Now, another advantage on the Poco F6 is that you get Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2 compared to Corning Gorilla Glass 5 on the X6 Pro. But if I have to tell you guys, Victus 2 does scratch more than Corning Gorilla Glass 5, but Victus 2 is definitely more impact resistant. So for the more money that you pay for the Poco F6, you don't necessarily get a better display and speakers also for that matter. Yes, the stereo speakers sound very similar too in terms of audio quality. Take a listen to it for yourself and let me know what you guys think. Now, the software experience on both is obviously the same. You get the same Hyper OS based on Android 14, and Poco promises 3+ 4 years of software updates for both the phones as well. And the experience of using the OS is largely similar. You get smooth transitions and there are a ton of useful features as well. Now, a couple of features that I really like are the lock screen settings, which is absolutely very well done, and the design of the new control center is pretty good looking too. But fair warning, to reduce the cost of the hardware, Poco does bundle a lot of third-party apps along with the phone. Some useful, most not. Plus, there are bundle partnerships with Branch Metrics and Glance, where you get that lock screen wallpaper. It gets a little annoying and overbearing sometimes. So after doing the math, I feel that the X6 Pro is actually more value for money than the F6. The 5,000 rupee premium that you will have to pay for the F6 won't give you any substantial benefits or advantages over the X6 Pro. And that realization, my friends, took me completely by surprise. If you agree, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to know your thoughts actually. Alright, that's it from me for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.